Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me in the back. Thank you for coming out for this evening's Female Founders event. My name is Dave Bradbury, and I get to work with Nikki and Kelly at the door and Sam to my right here. This is our 22nd event focused on female founders, the risk takers, the doers, the makers, the movers here in Vermont. You're all part of that, whether you know it or not, and thank you for your efforts and time and coming out tonight. I'm still a bit socially awkward, so go easy on me, and I will do my best here, and I know Peter is as well up front. So, again, we've had 22 events spanning all sorts of subjects. Yeah, right? Pretty cool. A couple thousand folks have turned out over the years. We've had two other sort of pitch, money sorts of events as well. And, you know, we're always open to ideas and little pop-up things. We don't like planning. At least I don't. Sam may a bit more than I do. But I do think it's really neat to see the momentum here in Vermont. And it's really thanks to all of you. I mean, just recently, there's been such great news with companies that are female-founded, female co-founded, female-led. Lost Lantern, Little Pataka, Core Map, Northern Reliability. Kelly Mack was a co-founder there. Zest Bloom, our crypto NFT company out in Mooresville with Jasmine. So it's deep, it's broad, it's diverse, it's happening. So without further ado, yeah, it's really exciting. I want to thank Hotel Vermont, and Hans is in the back there. We couldn't do this without you. This is a cool spot for an event of this size, and we're also thank our media partners for taping this, editing out my comments, and distributing this. I think we've been in 7 different states. So really, it's just not Vermont women and Vermont entrepreneurs that are learning. This goes into public access stations, radio, television, cable, throughout the country, and that's really special. So without further ado, Sam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You sure? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
We'll take it from here. Thank you all for coming up.
Thanks, Dave. He's good, right? We missed him last time. I said mostly nice things. Thanks, Media Factory, for editing out all the mean things I said about Dave. You guys are the best. Hi, good evening. Hello, I'm so happy to see all of you here, mostly maskless, which is so great. Thank you all for your safety precautions to keep everyone healthy. Really appreciate it. I am Sam Roach Gerber. I'm the Vice President at Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies, or VCET. Say that 5 times fast. And I'm really, really excited to have these 3 up here with me tonight. Creative agencies may be one of my favorite types of organizations for 2 reasons. One is I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I'll be like, well, Sam, you're creative in certain ways. No, I really don't. That's why I surround myself with people like this that are extremely creative. The other reason is because when they're doing what they do, they're enabling other founders, right? So it's like a win-win, and I think that's rad. So I'm really, really excited to have them here tonight. So we have, starting from far and working my way towards Katie, Isora Lithgow. She is the owner of Isora Lithgow Creations. Nailed it. We have Julie Jatlow, who is the co-owner of Fuse Marketing. And we have Katie Rutherford, who is the co-owner of Ruthless and Wellington, or as Dave calls them, Ruthless and Badass, I think. Legitimately keeps her, I'm like, Dave, that's not the name of the company. It's like, close enough. So I'm really, really like so excited to have you all here. And I have a million questions. So we're going to be here till like 10:30, 11 p.m. I hope that's okay for everyone. We have locked the doors, so make yourselves comfortable. I'm just kidding. Don't worry. No one panic. The door's cracked. You're all fine. Right? It feels good. Yeah, we needed that. Isora, tell us about your company. What do you do?
Oh my gosh, going first. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Isora Lithgow. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the CEO of Isora Lithgow Creations, LLC. I'm a photographer, but a creative at heart. I love everything creative. And a little bit about my company. I focus mainly on weddings and branding, but then I host a variety of different like mini sessions and kind of pop-up photo shoots for like families or maternity or seniors, things like that. So I started photography back in high school. I was part of a nonprofit in New York City where I grew up called NYC Salt, and that's where I learned skill and then just kind of developed from there on, and then started it as a side hustle after graduating UVM and working there full time. And it just kind of blossomed, and I'm almost a year full time now. So, yeah.
That's so rad. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Julie, tell us about Fuse.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Julie Jatlow, and I'm one of the owners at Fuse. And we are a youth marketing agency. We're located in Winooski, Vermont. Youth marketing loosely defined as Gen Z and millennials, although I'm sure many of us in here identify with a youth mindset. So sometimes we go older and sometimes younger. But we are a full services agency. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Sam, for having us.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, I'm Katie Rutherford from Ruthless Wellington, co-founder and creative director, wizardess. I've had different titles. It's amazing when you have your own thing. Titles are suddenly not a thing. The team, Ruthless Wellington team, is here in the front row.
Yay.
If anyone wants to say hello to them. And so I'm a co-founder along with Susan Weeks, and together for the past 5 years, we have been enjoying profusely running Ruthless Wellington our way, which means we are a branding and design studio, values-based, and we're all about design. Design is our passion. We worked in the agency world for a number of years together really closely and decided that we really love design, and that in a traditional agency setting, sometimes that gets pushed aside for client demands or monetary reasons, budget constraints, and that's kind of seems like the first thing to go. So we really crafted Ruthless Wellington with this idea in mind that we were going to really try to live our values through what we do every day and be champions of design. So we've been doing that, and we love it.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very
Very
cool.
thankful to be here.
Yay. A lot of clapping. I love it.
I love the clapping.
Energy up.
Keep the
That's
energy up,
great.
totally.
So great. Katie, did you think that you would start your own business one day? Was that like an aspiration of yours?
You know, as a designer, I went to art school and really was focused on a traditional path of being a creative director, and I had it in my head that, okay, leaving school with all of the student loan debt meant I really needed to climb the ladder fast, and that meant getting a creative director job, kind of on that path at an agency and or in-house. And it wasn't until I maybe was doing it for about 8 years that I started to think, well, maybe I could do this for myself. So for me, it was something that felt like one day I could take that on, potentially, but it was a scary prospect.
Yeah. And I mean, 8 years is like you get a lot of experience under your belt. That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you update your portfolio?
It's a sensitive question right now.
I feel like every designer I know, they have to take like 9 to 12 months off to update their portfolio. I'm like, I thought you were looking for a job. They're like, I have to update my portfolio first. See, I know what you guys are doing, designers. So Julie, you are a very interesting study here for us because
Wait,
you're
I
not
love that you're saying that. I've never been
You are. Look at you,
titled
you're
that,
so
yes.
great. You're in the middle. I love it. You are not a founder at Fuse.
That's right.
You're a co-owner. Can you tell us a little bit about that path? Because when I asked Julie to do this, she's like, well, I'm not a founder. I was like, yes, but co-owner is such a specific path that I think a lot of creative agencies have that option, and there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity there. So if you could talk a little bit about your path, that would be awesome.
Yes, I am a founder of many side hustles that are no longer with me, so I know that path really well. But it's so interesting, and I can't remember if it was Dave or someone else said to me, I'm so excited to hear your story. And I'm like, I've been at Fuse for 20 years. You know, there's not a huge story, but I have been thinking a lot about it. And with, when I first went to Fuse, I had one account. It was the big account at Fuse. It was Mountain Dew. We do a lot of work with PepsiCo. And soon after that, I had 2 more accounts, Right Guard and Ford, and then 7, and then 15, and 20, and here I am.
Those were account names. I'm like, I haven't heard of those companies.
Yeah. And so, I think for me, I've been on this trajectory, but every step of the way, I guess I've really just considered always, the work that I'm doing, kind of my own little business. And I watched it grow, and that's what was always so exciting to me, is watching myself grow, my accounts grow, my team grow, and to be an owner of an agency that has 40 people now, which is so hard to believe, it's crazy, is really exciting. Because I think, and I say, leadership comes from all places in the agency, and I really mean that. It's like you control your own space, and even if it's one account or 3 or 7 or 8, it's fun to watch other people have that drive in them. So that's what I had, and I love it all. It's been 20 years. It's crazy.
That's crazy. And so what advice would you give to a young designer, maybe who just joined an agency and wants to be a leader in that space, but just doesn't have very much experience yet?
Yeah, I talk to a lot of young people. I call them young people, but so I talk to a lot of young people, college students too, and I do think experience is so valuable, but it doesn't have to always be from a job necessarily. It's college students who, I know you work with a lot of students, but it's college students, having a leadership role maybe at a club, or it could be a volunteer position that you're really passionate about. So I just tell, people that ask me, how do you get into this world and how do you gain the experience? And I think it's, following things that you love and also getting experience from wherever you go.
Good advice. Isora, you started as a side hustle, which I think is really common for creative folks because you're like, man, gotta pay the bills first, right? Talk to us a little bit about early days, like when you first started as a business. Like, what was that like, and what made you sort of jump in?
Yeah, I think that the business found me more than I found the business. I went to UVM at undergrad. I started working there a month later. And after my first year working, I had some students who were like, hey, we know you do photography, you have a fancy camera, all this stuff. Can you take our senior portraits? I feel like that was around the time where senior portraits started to become more popular and things like that. And I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. I love this. I've been wanting to actually get back into it. And then, yeah, it just, one after the other, they saw it being, other folks saw it being posted on social media, and they were like, oh my gosh, so people started reaching out. So I was like, I guess I'll make an email address, and then I was like, okay, and I didn't even charge the first couple people, and then I think the first person that I did charge, I think it was $40, so little. I was like, yeah, whatever you want to give me, no problem. And then a year later, I was like, okay, I upgraded my camera to a full frame camera, and was like, okay, I think I want to go into this as a side hustle. I'm not making enough from higher education by itself. I got bills to pay. This would be awesome. Going on vacation or things like that. So, and so yeah, I just kind of I started with senior portraits and doing more the following year, and then I did my first wedding, kind of within that second year, starting as a side hustle. But I did not become like an LLC or like file taxes until like let's be
Edit
real,
that out.
you know. I mean, I wasn't making like millions, so it's fine.
Not yet.
Right, exactly, not yet. And so, 2.5 years ago, I became an LLC, and that's really when I was like, all right, like, we're gonna take this, we're gonna run with it, we're gonna like be official, get a contract, like get HoneyBook, all these like systems and things. And but really, it wasn't until like a year and a half ago where I was like, I don't think higher education is it for me anymore, and I'm having a hard time like going to work every day, honestly. And I had moved, and I was not, hated that, and then I was like, you know what, like, let's just do it. Like, why not? Like, I started an Instagram for my business, like, 3 years into running it as a side hustle. Like, I was just like, I want to do this like when it feels comfortable every step of the way. So it was kind of like touch and go, like do a little, all right, do a little more, that sort of thing.
Testing the waters. I love that. And I love that you started with customers, right? You started with customers. I think that's so important to prove that you have something. And so many founders let those little things like taxes stand in the way. I'm joking, but yeah, just starting, right? You just have to start. You have to start somewhere, and I think that's such an important lesson. One thing I've been dying to ask you is, not every photographer should be a business owner, right? So I'm just curious if there's certain like skills or anything that comes to mind in terms of like what makes you a good business owner if you're a photographer. It could be any type of creative person. Like what makes you able to actually start something?
Yeah, I think that like for me, like they're right, like I run a photography business, so they're together and intertwined, and like there's this whole business aspect that has all this language and all these connections and all these things, including taxes. And then there's the photography world, which is its own like umbrella around skill and equipment and knowledge and light and color and like all these things. And so like I'm learning simultaneously at the same time two very different things. And so I think it can be really challenging for folks to do that. And that's why a lot of photographers do start off as a side hustle, because they're like, all right, like I can get a few clients and like I don't really have to do too much of the business-y side, right? Like so many folks like do stuff without contracts, right? And then sometimes that doesn't go too well, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of like, just like putting yourself like out there and learning and like continue to learn in the business aspect of it, because I think that if I wouldn't have like invested in different things like coaching and design and like systems, like the minute I got HoneyBook, it's a like a client relationship system where like my clients come in and I email and all that kind of stuff. Like the minute I got that, like I feel like my whole business just like went like this. Like it just felt like a load had been lifted from my shoulders of like, all right, like I can send my contracts, do this, I can email through this, I can take notes. Like it just felt like the world of business was like an easier grasp for me. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of dedication. So I think that like photographers who want to get into it, like understanding that like, yeah, like you can take beautiful photos, but there's this huge client aspect of it and like running this business component of it that you have to be like ready to dive into as well. So
I'm overwhelmed just thinking about it. And tonight's event is sponsored by HoneyBook, so thank you, HoneyBook. No,
if you need a code, let me know.
it's not true. No, but those are the little nuggets, right? Like those are the things I'm like, when she said it earlier, I was like, what's HoneyBook? We're gonna remember that one. So any other like softwares you recommend or like?
Oh my God, I spend so much money on software because every one of them helps my business, and every one of them like is so specific, whether it's pick time to deliver my galleries, Honeybook to manage my clients, Notion to like make sure I've got lists going on and communicating with my assistant. Yeah, I have a lot of like apps that I use.
I love it.
Yeah, they're so helpful.
Katie, any apps you're obsessed with?
I don't know. I'm like an app overload.
Too much app.
I'm like more.
Unsubscribe from the apps. Gotcha.
A little bit, yeah.
I've got to have a balance here.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer a notebook, a sketchbook, and old school, Tombow pens is my jam.
Perfect. All right.
Analog.
Well,
I like it.
Send me a snail mail about it. I'll send you some stamps.
All right.
Yeah. All right, so Katie, I'm gonna jump over and bother you. So sorry. It's okay. So I was teasing Katie because I said, sorry, Katie, Susan, love you both, but only one of you can be on the panel, and I didn't think they were gonna do it. That's how tethered this team is, which is beautiful. It's beautiful. So I'm gonna throw you a softball and ask, why are you and Susan great business partners? How did you know that this was the right person for you to go into business with? Because partnerships are a big effing deal.
Yeah, no, they are, and man, it's a marriage, right? And Susan is my significant other. I mean, I talk to her more than anybody else.
Hey, Susan.
And so we're about to turn 5, and we are so just getting past that first year was something that after that first year, it was just evidence for us that this was a good decision. This was the right decision, and because the first year tests you a lot. And then you hit 3, and then that's you're like, wow, okay, we've been through so much and learned so much, and the learning just continues. But one thing that was really important to Susan and I when we started was our alignment. We had seen in the industry in general that there can be having strong leaders and having a lot of alignment at the leadership level is so important, and it can kind of make or break an organization, as we know. And so for us entering into something that was very new, no real formal understanding of what we were getting into, it was really important for us to establish, and we thought there would be a really strong alignment. We had a sense that there was, but we actually took ourselves through a series of exercises that we do for our clients, and that was kind of our way of establishing.
Dated before we got married.
We did. We took ourselves through a process that then actually became the foundation for our process that we use with our clients. And it was essentially what do you value, Susan? What do I value? And we workshopped it. We put it on, what are those things called? Giant Post-its.
The word, yeah.
In my basement, and really went through, do our values align? What inspires us? Does that align?
And I mean,
what does success look like?
Anyone
right?
that invites you into your basement, I feel like you have to be pretty comfortable with them.
It's a very cushy basement.
Oh, good. Okay.
Classy.
It's not like a dungeon. No, that's good.
Fully furnished.
And so, what do you suggest for folks? I meet a lot of solo founders that are seeking out a co-founder, and obviously that wasn't exactly your situation. But any advice of what to look for in a co-founder?
Just people who bring you joy, and that kind of. Susan and I are aligned on so many levels, and we're different people, but we really have a strong passion for design and a strong passion for doing good work. We both have a high bar, and we did it for 6 years together. So I think that we were really lucky and have been really lucky in that regard. Our first client is a solo entrepreneur, and she has asked us many times, how do I find another, has asked that same question.
Yeah.
And it's maybe just being open to the people in your life that share the same passions as you are, as you do. So
Yeah, I love that.
though.
That's beautiful. What's your biggest pet peeve with design? What do you see and you're just like, ugh, why?
Unnecessary strokes and drop shadows.
I couldn't
Don't hold that.
I couldn't tell you what that means if you could just break that down a little bit for the layperson over here.
It's a typography thing.
Okay.
I can show you.
Could you? That would be great. If it has anything to do with the VSET logo, I don't want to see it.
You guys, no. You do a pretty good job.
Okay, cool. Touched a bullet there. Julie, you work with big brands. Like not Honeybook, like big brands. Can you talk to us a little bit about negotiating deals?
Yeah.
Like what? Anyone else super intimidated by that? Mountain Dew? Like how do you hand them a contract? Like, no idea. So
Yeah.
any tips you can offer there?
I think that the one thing I love when it comes to negotiating contracts is just to be really open and transparent. And I think at Fuse, we do a lot of planning before you get to the contract so that everybody who's involved really understands what they're getting into. And it takes a lot of planning. I'm constantly talking about car dealerships, and it's like, do you want the used car? By the way, many of us have used cars. Do you want the brand new car? Many of us have new cars, or there's the pre-owned. There are a lot of different options, and I think a lot of clients or brands don't know what they want, so there's a lot of education involved before you even get to the contract or the negotiating. So.
Doing your homework. Doing your homework.
Do your
first.
homework, or rely on your partner. I mean, we don't consider ourselves negotiating when we do contracts. Really, we are partners with a lot of our clients. We have been for 20 plus years, 15 years. Some clients 10 years. And I think you just need to take the time to understand what you're getting into. And oftentimes, to get more specific, a client might want this, this, and this, but they can only afford this and this. And so you just talk it out. They can add it later. You can take it out. So my business partner and I are both a big part of the new business process. And we both believe in just being really open from the start so that expectations are met all the way through.
Really good
For the most
advice.
part, yeah.
Really good advice. Have you ever fired a client?
Yes. We have. Have you guys? Have you guys fired a client?
About firing a client.
Well,
Because I know there's people out there that are like, I really need to fire that one client. I know you're out there. So give us some advice around that.
I wouldn't say I have advice, but I mean, they're basically, who do you want to be doing business with, and just make sure that they're being really respectful to your craft or to your employees. So I think respect is where we draw the line, right? Respect, and then I think also expectation. So previously I was talking about managing expectations from the start. And when those things go awry, there are times when you can course correct, of course, but there are times when you just know it's not going to work out. And so everyone loves new business, but not enough to jeopardize your belief system, your values, your staff, the things that are important to people.
Yeah.
And some people, clients, and also agencies and creative people. I mean, everyone forgets that sometimes. That's okay. But yeah, it's not worth an extra $1 here or there. So
Yeah.
Yes, we have. We don't do it often. I want to put that out there. It's happened a few times, but you guys want to know who?
Isora, we talked a little bit about that too. Like when you're starting off, like you say yes to everything, right? Because you need the business, you need the income. Tell me a little bit about how you've learned to become more selective.
Oh, I mean, I think that a lot of it is unpacking worthiness and infusing celebration into that. And so for me, realizing like, no, like you are talented, you are running a business, like that's huge. And also being able to celebrate those moments, like booking that high ticket client, you know, having so many sessions in a year, you know, the money aspect, but then also like when somebody came up to me yesterday who had photographed their family and they told me like, wow, that was like one of the most special moments we've experienced as a family together. And right. So I think that it's a lot of like that and unpacking that for me. And then just really kind of getting to a point where like, okay, like how you were saying, like expectations, right? Like this is how I want my business to run. These are the values that I have. If somebody meets that, great. We're gonna have so much fun together. But if they don't, and I've been really working on like leaning into my intuition and trusting my gut, and that is so important. Like, especially as a small business owner, right? Because like, yeah, like I can say yes to everything that comes my way, but one, I'm one human, and two, not everyone's for me. And so really setting expectations, and that's why I meet with every client before I sign a contract with them, and that's really important for me to be able to get to know them. And some may say that's a lot of time and energy, but it's like, no, like if I want to work with amazing people who value me, I need to value the fact that like we need to meet and we need to talk and we need to sit down. And you know, I don't photograph babies, so like it would make no sense for you to like come to me for that, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else can help you better and can serve you better.
I love that. And so one of the things that you present so beautifully on your website, which y'all should check out, Isora Lithgow Creations.com. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Look it up. You say you live out your values through your business. Is that a big piece of that first interaction with a client?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that I'm a woman of color, I'm a queer woman of color, and I think for me, like, I have to meet with people, I have to feel the vibe. Like, if you're homophobic, I'm sorry, like, we can't work together, like, it's not gonna happen. If you're racist, also that, right? Like, we just can't, no. And so for me, like, I have to be able to ask some strategic questions, whether it's in the intake form or during our call, or just, like, feel the vibe, again, trust my intuition. And so, yeah, it's, but then it's also little things like, you know, I have folks who work for me. I have an assistant who works for me, and paying her a fair wage, and something that like isn't just like working her to death. Like I gave her the whole month of March off because she was going through all these transitions, right? Like it's being able to talk with her. It's for, I don't know if there's any photographers in the crowd, but specifically wedding photographers, I feel like I've started to have this conversation around second shooters and how little we pay them. And not me, I haven't paid them that little, but like I have a really high starting rate as a second, because if I'm asking someone to take a day out of their calendar to come shoot with me, like I want them to be able to at least make like a decent amount of money for that day when they could have been making triple that, truly. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's even just things like that that are really important in living my values out. Even just like the people that I work with, right? Like a diverse group of folks. And I think part of that is like me and the identities that I hold. So I'm so grateful for that. But then just being able to talk about the issues that are in my communities, but other folks' communities, on social media, on my website, wherever it may be.
So rad. And being able to support other businesses that have the similar values that you do is so important. I think that's part of what makes this community really amazing and unique. Exactly. Katie, you were nodding along a lot with some of the value stuff there. How has that impacted you and Susan and the clients that you work with?
Yeah, it's a big part of our process to ensure at the outset that there is alignment with any potential client, particularly, you know, that they value design, I think is a big thing for us, because that's where things can go wrong in a relationship. From what we've seen, if there isn't if a client does not understand, that does not see what we bring to the table as worthy, and like of what the price tag attached to it is, and the process in particular, then it's not a fit for us. And sometimes you don't discover that until a little bit farther down the line, and that's can be unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's been rare for us. We've been able to really try very hard to vet any potential client, to understand, do they value design? Do our values align? And that we're setting realistic expectations too on both sides, really understanding what are their goals and expectations, and can we actually deliver
Right.
on them?
Right, yeah. And you touched on something that I think is a major topic, especially for creatives, pricing. Oh my God, pricing. I mean, no one has it figured out, even people that have like direct costs associated. Like, tell us about pricing. We'll start with Katie, and then I literally want to go to each of you because we could talk about it for 100 hours and probably still not come up with the answer. But what's at least the strategy? What are some things to think about?
It's tough. I mean, especially in this community in Vermont, there are a lot of how do I say it diplomatically?
Just say it.
That price will oftentimes be the deciding factor, and it's not. It's not apples to apples, right? Like I think so. I was on the board of AIGA for a number of years here, and that's I can't even remember the acronym now, but it's the Professional Networking Association for Designers. It's national, and we have a local chapter here. And a lot of the work that we did was around trying to educate the business community around the true value of design and why it costs what it should. That it should always probably cost more than what you have in your head.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. It's a magical process, right? You don't see what goes into it oftentimes, or may not understand it. You just see the outcome, and it's awesome, hopefully. And you're like, yeah, that's great. Okay, it's a thing. I want that. But you don't always know what goes into that process, how time-consuming and agonizing, how many decisions go into that, into the work. And so pricing is tough because when we first started out, we had no real sense other than, from working in the agency world and working and through being on the board of AIGA, I had a little bit of an understanding at a national level and then at the kind of Vermont level, roughly like where the range is, but it's an insanely huge range.
Right. That's like the
Insane.
kind of thing that you Google, as someone that's like purchasing a service, and it's between $200,000 and $14,000. And you're like,
between like $5 and $14. You know what I mean? Like it's huge. So it was tough for us because I think, right, like we could put any price out there that we wanted, in theory, but our own worth came into question in the beginning because we were just starting out. We got a lot of questions like, okay, well, can't you just do this as a portfolio piece, or because you're new, and
Yeah.
do you even know what you're doing really? I mean, like, have you really done this particular thing for Ruthless and Wellington? Yeah, you've done it in the past, but have you actually done it yourself? And
I
it's
don't like this hypothetical client.
neither do we. I mean, we heard that a lot, unfortunately, in our first 3 years. So there was a lot of proving, a lot of selling, a lot of doubt, a lot of tears, a lot of rejection, but also a lot of people along the way that encouraged us and told us, like, at different times, you have to charge more, always charge more. You're two women, female founders, like, you are like worth more than you think. Put it down, just do it, add a zero.
All right, there you go. That's the nugget, add a zero.
Add a zero.
Julie, what advice do you have around pricing?
I'm coming back to the same theme that I've been talking a lot about, but I do believe that the education process is huge, because how many people don't understand the creative services the creative services industry, what goes into, brand DNA, or putting together, a consumer experience at a big, music festival, or, producing something, physical for events. It goes on and on. There's so many people that you're working with, clients who are experts in something, but maybe not in the services that they're hiring you for. So I do believe that educating them is the best possible thing that can happen. I'll go back to the whole car thing, because it's really easy to start to understand that services cost a certain amount. You don't have to buy them all at once. I think oftentimes we're phasing out plans. We also present, typically we will present 3 budget levels. So we'll say, hey, there's the silver, the gold, and the platinum. And here's what you get with silver, and it's great, and it looks like this because we've done it 1,000 times, so we know that that's what it costs. And here's what you get for gold, and here's what you get for platinum, and it has all the bells and whistles, and we know you want that, but maybe you can't afford it. So I think that education is just so critical, being really transparent, laying out all the details that you can in the upfront so there are no surprises when it comes down to putting it into a contract and signing that deal. So that's, I would also say we do time tracking. So we were talking about the apps. We have a lot of software at Fuse, so much. Oh my gosh, one of my goals in 22 is to consolidate, but one of our platforms, digital platforms, is time tracking. So all of our employees, are roughly estimating how much time they're spending on all of their projects. And we're able to pull reports monthly, quarterly. If it's a retainer deal for a year, we can pull it annually. And we update the client sometimes. Sometimes we know we're gonna go over, it's okay, we're good partners. Sometimes we're under, and we're good partners there too. We say, hey, you still have some hours left, would you like another service of sorts? So time tracking has really helped us over the years. Wow. We have done these projects for so long, so we understand what they cost, so it's just about educating. I really believe in that.
That's great. Isora.
Yeah, pricing.
You don't charge $40, I hope.
No. No. Thank goodness. I would be so broke. Yeah, I think that it is definitely a hard topic, especially as a small business owner, right? How do I'm doing all the many parts, and I'm also providing this service. And so how do I account for the hours that I'm doing all of this, and also at your wedding, right? And so I think that people don't realize that the price that I give you accounts for everything, right? It accounts for the marketing time, it accounts for the times where I'm brainstorming, it accounts for the putting your taxes in order, it accounts for all these things that folks don't necessarily see, right? They see the picture. And so it's been a journey to raise my prices, and I've been working with an awesome coach, Denise, and she's been really helping me understand and also look at the landscape, right? So I'll use wedding photography as an example. There are 1,000,000,001 wedding photographers in the state of Vermont, and there's a lot of folks who are adjacent, New Hampshire, New York, right, who come here often. And similarly, the prices range from $300 to $14,000, which I don't know how you could charge $300, but okay. And yeah, it's hard to think about okay, I know I'm pricing myself at this rate based on my expertise, on equipment, on how many I've done, time, right, all these things. But it's definitely hard, especially for folks who are, specifically for a wedding, right? You're spending thousands of dollars on all sorts of things, and then you're gonna go spend $5,000 on a photographer. That hurts, right? Sometimes, and I get it. And I think it's educating them on, this isn't just about the photos. This is about the experience with me as well, and me walking you through this process and you feeling comfortable on that special day. So it goes beyond that, but then also will I produce the photos that you need and want at the end of the day? And am I gonna be the person who tells you hey, this brown barn that you've chosen, not going to give you the light and airy feel that you particularly want. So it's really interesting to do some of that work also. But yeah, pricing is hard, and especially when folks are, like, the spectrum is so wide. And I see folks who are so talented charging so little. And yeah, I hope that we get to a point where we all start to see our worthiness, and especially as women, and for me as a woman of color, I'm like, that's a tax of woman of color tax right there. Like,
Oh, yeah.
listen, I go through a lot, so.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I think too, like, as consumers and as clients ourselves, right, we all use other services. Like, we have to understand what goes into it and show others the same kind of respect that we have for what we do, right? So I think that's such an important lesson. And I think the education and transparency that Julie's been talking about too, like when you see how much a photographer puts in with the location scouting and the editing and like travel, and there's so much that goes into it, it's like, oh yeah, that does make sense, right? Once you really think about it.
Equipment is expensive.
Yeah. So that's actually another thing that I think we should talk about a little bit is how you've financed your businesses, debt, equity, just bootstrapping. Like what, Isora, we can start with you since we're kind of over there already and work our way back.
Yeah, lots of jobs, honestly. I had a full-time, when I first started, I had a full-time job at UVM. Then I was also a house director for one of the sororities on campus, so I got free housing and a small stipend paycheck. And so that's how I was able to save some money to buy equipment, to buy services, to buy all these apps, and to help me out, and to grow and to pay into education, because I think that's a huge part that folks forget. Like, yes, I'm learning by doing, but there's also knowledge that comes from the community, and we need to be paying folks for that. So I think that's also really important. But yeah, I haven't taken out a loan. I mean, we got some money on our credit card right now because we bought a second body, third body actually. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's been me, myself, and I.
Wow.
And I'm definitely interested in applying to some grants and things. There's some fun stuff that I want to do that's not just paid work necessarily, but I want it to be kind of grant funded. And so
Cool.
if anybody knows how to do that out there, just
All right.
let me know.
I love it. Oh, yeah, you guys
don't
can have
even know how to
access
do- yeah,
I know
you
a
two should
couple
talk.
things about business here and there,
Yeah.
but happy to help.
Thank you.
Grants are not really my jam, but we can get into it.
Yeah.
We'll find some. Julie, a little bit of a different path, a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah, different situation. I mentioned before I have had a few side hustles, so I self-funded those. But the one thing I talk about when people ask me about funding, I always talk a lot about sweat equity, which I think we all are very familiar with, is just those, I put in a lot of hours, whether it was my own project or, for Fuse. But I'm a big fan of piloting programs, and I give the same advice to my clients as well, is test and learn, pilot a program, start small before you scale up, all those terms that everyone talks about. But I genuinely believe in those that, test a little bit and make sure that that feels like the right way to go, and then you can start to scale up. So I know that doesn't help with the financing part, but
using your customers' money, right?
I
Charge.
It's true, and they say, I think with our clients in particular, it's like they think they might want to go in this direction. We say, hey, we feel really confident about this. Let's pilot it. 1 market, 2 markets, 3 markets, and then and then go national. So it's not just advice I give myself, but also to my clients.
Great advice.
All right.
Katie?
Oh yeah, I forgot the question for a second. Okay, so yeah, so we
And can I add a part of the question for you too?
Sure.
Because I think you're well suited for this, is scaling your company, right? Like how do you plan your growth, because you have a team now, of using your financial projections to plan out what you can do sort of for the next year or however you do it. Any advice there?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. the thanks to that goes to Susan. Susan did a lot of that in her previous life, projecting, forecasting. Susan is like a wizard when it comes to all of that stuff. So I really rely on her.
You got to find the right business partner again.
Yeah. No, we do a lot of that work. I mean, we do everything together, but we, we started our business with some money in savings. Each of us, we kind of were gearing up for a change, a career change. Did not know that we were going to take this business on. Just kind of sort of figured that piece out. But we had some savings to lean on as a little bit of a safety net. And then we both pulled together $2,500. And that was $5,000 was like our starting budget for whatever it was that we had to do.
All the apps.
All the
No apps.
all the
Markers,
pens,
color
and
pencils.
sketchbooks that I needed. Yeah,
I get you a lot of colored
pens.
pencils with $5,000.
I have a lot too. No, it actually, we kept it really trim and really, we're lucky. Because what we do is branding, right? So we could do our own brand, we could do our own website, we could do a lot of the things that can be a big investment for a company when they're
Yeah.
starting up. So that was really advantageous. And then we really just were very conservative
Yeah.
with our money until, and at certain stages, we would look at everything and say, okay, like we can maybe pay ourselves a little bit more now.
Yeah.
We can maybe, give ourselves a little bonus or invest that money back into the business. We love swag.
Love swag.
So we spend a ton of money on stickers and buttons and T-shirts and pennants and all kinds of fun stuff. So you got to invest back into the business. But we've just been very conservative along the way and mindful.
Luckily,
Visa was a big one.
I was going to say, luckily, Visa membership is only $100 per person per month. Very flexible. Free memberships to students. Visa.co. But that's exactly why. I mean, could we charge more than $100 per person per month? Absolutely. But we don't want to because early days, that shit makes or breaks you. For real. That cash flow is so, so important. Anyway, enough about me. Katie, one thing I've been dying to ask you is how do you keep your ideas fresh? You're probably sending out a lot of proposals to people. Like, how do you stay inspired and send out, like, the good stuff, you know?
Taking time off. I mean, trying to, like traveling, just trying to get away.
Yeah.
Because when doing what we do, I mean, it's in our head 24/7. I don't charge for the ideas I come up with when I'm sleeping. Like, I'm thinking of these things all the time, right? Like, it's constant. It's like you can't get away from it unless you really just like shut it off. So that's a big part. Traveling with wonderful people that bring you joy and
Aw. I'd love to go with you. That sounds
I'm looking at this one.
It's kind of weird that you're not looking at me. Sorry. It's weird. It's fine. I forgive you. So, Isora, as you've started full-time a year ago, how have you been marketing your business? How have you been drumming up new clients?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Instagram is like a huge component of my marketing. But then I joined the Wedding Wire and the Knot. I can give you an update once a year has passed as to whether or not it was useful. Like,
We'll do a follow-up this time next year. We'll meet you.
Where are they now?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of like cold leads, which is interesting for a business that charges so much. But mainly social media, and then word of mouth is huge. And my business started like that. I didn't have Instagram or any social media for my business in the first 2 years of it, like as a side hustle. And so it's been really huge to have word of mouth, clients referring other clients. Those are like typically my favorite people because they know my work, they've seen it. They're not just like, kind of blindly finding 2 photos on Instagram and messaging me. Like they've read through my website and they've had somebody vouch for me and things like that. And so that's been a huge component. I just got like my Google store.
Nice.
So that was like a scary moment because people can leave like bad reviews, which is like not nice, honestly, especially for small businesses.
Yeah.
Like reviews are huge. So it was scary, and I think I was nervous to even like put it into play. But I know it's important for the algorithm and all the things.
Yeah.
And then redoing my website this
Yeah.
year, working with a graphic designer to get that done, and it feels so much more like me.
Great.
And yeah, it's
Well,
been really awesome.
Speaking of which, I was wanting to ask you about that too, because one of the main services you offer too is branding photography.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about why that's important? I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room that probably don't even have a headshot on their website, right? Raise your hand. So why is that important? Why can you justify that cost?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like, you are as much part of your business as whatever product or service you're selling. And I think in the world that we live in today, people want to know the people behind these businesses. Like, they're invested. Like, people like the photo of me on Instagram more than they like all my other photos. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, show my face more. Thank you. And so, like, they want to know, right? Especially in this digital age world where things feel so tangible. I mean, you could be talking to someone across the world and following them and following their journey and following their experience. And I think also a lot of folks want to be part of like a community. And so having a photo on your website of you is like the bare minimum, truly. So definitely if you don't have one, like even like a photo of like to tell a friend to like put you on a plain wall and like do it. Like it's so important. But investing in a photographer, especially if you're a product-based business, I feel like I've been working with a lot more product-based businesses recently. Folks want to know like, what is it that you're selling? Like, what does it look like physically? What does it look like in someone's hand? I had a session with my amazing friend and jeweler, Sol Simone, and we had our, she was really, Sol Simone, she's awesome. And she was like, I've been getting so many DMs of people wanting to see the earrings on someone. Mm-hmm. They want to see the scale, the size, like how does it shimmer, right? Mm-hmm. All these pieces. And so when you don't have those photos, it's hard for somebody to invest. It's hard for them to swipe their card to invest in your business or your brand or your service when they don't really know, what it is to its fullest extent. It's the same thing when you go to a restaurant. Like most of the time you want to see the food, at least like somewhere on the menu, at least some parts of it, right? Or at least a description of it. And so, it's really important to have photos. And at the end of the day, some folks, specifically small businesses, tend to not do that sooner than they should. Like they'll make a whole website, they'll work with on a rebrand or whatever, and then they'll use the same photos. It's like, no, they should be in unison, like truly. You're gonna have this beautifully designed website with like iPhone. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can take some good iPhone photos, but like professional photography is so important. And just the way that somebody's gonna view like the lighting, the angles, like for instance, again, with the earrings, like part of what is so special about her brand is that they're like shiny and they've got like these really fine details, and like certain cameras aren't going to capture that and certain photographers aren't going to know like how exactly to capture that. So that's why you want to hire a professional. And at the end of the day, like it's a huge investment in your business. Like you're going to make money from these photos. I promise you. Like, I promise you, you're going to make money 10 times fold. And you're just going to build authority with the folks in your community and in your realm as a professional in the industry. So.
Hell yeah. All right.
And it's a tax write-off, so.
There you go. We really have a tax expert over here. It's pretty great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I know you're sick of me yamming up here, so I'm going to get my mic guy, Dave Bradbury, president of VSET, to walk around and get some Q&A here. So let's get some hands up.
First thing?
Hi. This is a question because I do it all the time. What's a fail you've learned from?
I have a lot. So I'll start. But when I think of moments that were, not failures, that's the worst word, but learnings, I would say. I always turn things into opportunities, turn them into a positive, is I think back on my career and I remember, I explicitly remember when I first found my voice in the room, whatever room it was or is, and I wish I had found it a little bit earlier. And so I just like to say to people, like, find your voice when you can, as soon as you can, work on it. Because I remember when I advocated for myself as a young woman, and it was a pivotal time in my career. And I'll never forget it. And so I sometimes think I should have done it earlier, but it was just my path. And everyone has their own path. So find it, use it, love it, follow it, and you're your own cheerleader. I mean, some people could be cheering for you on the sidelines, obviously, but they also have to cheer for themselves. So you are for you. So go out there and find your voice quickly.
Anyone? I have a quick question. Early on, you talked about traditional pathways. Some of you had done the traditional pathways to get into your business and everything else. I'm wondering, how does social media, so the TikToks, the Instagrams, where people are subverting all of that traditional pathways, where do you see that as examples for in your work in terms of people kind of going around, quote, the traditional routes of, being a creative?
I mean, Canva is one thing that I've heard a lot about as an app. I think it's an app. I have not used it myself. I know I sound like so low tech. I'm really not that low tech, but
You just sound like a really cool designer that you don't even know.
Right. It's like, I don't know what it is.
No, it's PowerPoint is a big one. It's actually really powerful. You can do some pretty cool 3D stuff in that. But yeah, I think it's people taking these tools and kind of hacking them a little bit, and I think that's for me, I've come around. I think when I was a young designer, it felt very like a slap in the face for someone to design something, hand me a template and say use this and build something off of a PowerPoint template. But now I do think that people being able to hack these tools to do what they need to do, I'm all for it. If you can do it, go for it. If you're into the outcome of that, go for it. I'm not always into it, but
That's your jam.
But it's I think it can be helpful for people to have access to things like Canva and PowerPoint to be able to post to social media regularly or make their workflow quicker. But I don't know that I answered the question.
I'm thinking more in terms of for Fuse, particularly influencers, right? They're subverting the traditional, all these big businesses are seeking those creatives because they have an interesting way of segueing. How do you you're looking at talent that is maybe not on terms of their resume, looks like the traditional, but you're just selecting them potentially to be your staff or to be part of your work with you. How does that figure in nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it democratizes creativity. I know it's not a popular thing to say, but I think these platforms are a great way for young people to express themselves. Not all, but some. And in all transparency, TikTok is a client, so I'm just putting that out there. But I think that I like seeing what's happening next. I'm a really big fan of innovation and exploration and seeing where young people are taking creativity and technology and putting things out into the world. So I don't know, I'm a big fan. Again, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but yeah, I believe in it all. We do a lot of influencer programs, and we're tapping people for different reasons. oftentimes it's because they're, really creative and they're creators. I mean, that's what we call them now, not even influencers anymore, is they're creators. They're content creators. It could be anything from food to fashion or, shoes or car culture or, anything like that. The environment, things that they believe in, and they're using these platforms to kind of stand on their soapbox in a different way than maybe we all did.
I think to just quickly add on that, I think the technology that we have now has created more accessibility for creators, for people. They're reaching a wider net, and folks are able to see multiple perspectives, right? Because somebody who's on TikTok and their perspective and their creation is going to be really different than like the work that you do, right? And so to get different angles and different perspectives, I think it's really important, and I think it also, just opens up the box of accessibility in a really big way.
Hi. So hearing that you were all employees before you were employers, I'm curious if your motivation as an employee is different from what drives you as an employer. If you could speak to that, and just knowing that for some people they think, oh, this is my passion, I don't want to lose my love for it if it becomes my full-time job and I'm dependent on it, or they may be thinking, it's comfortable to go to work every day and know that I'm not responsible for making sure everybody gets paid and that sort of thing, where it might be intimidating as the employer. So I'm curious, back to that original question, what motivated you then versus what motivates you now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I just had it in my head. So when I was an employee, I was really motivated by having strong mentors in my life and feeling like I was a part of a team and that collectively we were doing really good work. Like, that's still something that aligns with the business today and where I am, where we are. But it is different. I mean, when we started out our business, we were very intentional to discuss how do we define success, and again, to find that alignment. Like, are we motivated by the same things? Are we motivated by money? Are we motivated by our passion? And so that was something we were really hyper-focused when we started the business, that we did not want money to be the key driver of the types of clients we take on, the type of work that we take on. And that has been something we have been maybe even more fiercely holding on to as the years go by. So yeah, and when I was an employee, it was, what's my path? And how much money am I, going to be making? When can I ask for a raise? How can I get more leadership skills? And then kind of reached a point where I felt like I had those leadership skills. I had those great mentors in my life. And it was really about the work.
Cool.
Yeah. I feel like the fear of losing the passion was a really, really big part of why it took me so long to get to where I was. And I have never felt more proud, connected to what I do to photography than I do now, which is just so funny because I was so scared. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like it. If I'm depending on it for money and living, I'm just gonna lose my creativity. And it wasn't until I was deep in it, all right, you quit your job, this is it, that I was just a couple months in, I was like, wow, I'm so happy. I get to wake up and do whatever the hell I want every single day. I get to choose who I work with. I get to say no to people I don't want to work with. It's amazing. I'm way too talented to work for somebody else, honestly. So if you're thinking about it, just do it.
Mic drop. Amazing.
Yes, I'm curious to know what, and you can say it maybe in a percentage of time or hours in a week, you spend on new customer acquisition, and also how closely you monitor your return on investment of marketing dollars, and like maybe it's even down to like per customer.
We kind of, sorry to anybody who's a marketer, marketing is like kind of a dirty word for us. Like when we, again, apologies, and I know that what we do for branding is...
I'm offended.
Sorry. There's a place for it. There's a place for it. Absolutely. And obviously, you know, the great thing about it is you can calculate down to like the penny ROI and all of, you know, customer acquisition cost and all of that. For me personally, there's no love there for me. Like it doesn't drive me personally. And so our approach has really been through relationship building and growing kind of more organically that way. We have actually not done any marketing for ourselves. It's all been through client relationships. At some point, we will probably have to do. I mean, social media, right? We do social media, but we don't really spend the time or kind of mental energy on the ROI stuff.
All right, well, you guys are going to get some pitches. The marketing people are like, okay.
Great. Well, and this is marketing because she's talking about our company. So there are good things. This is just, nice, natural marketing. Yeah. But I would say that I would say 80 to 90% of my time is, I say client acquisition, but it's exactly what Katie was saying. So much of it is relationship building with existing clients. So while the new clients are so exciting and it brings in a whole new flock of brands or categories into our agency, I think most of our new business comes from existing clients. So the organic business, because our employees do such amazing work. And so it's just, they're constantly calling you. There's no more pitching anymore. It's like, here's the next project, here's the next project. And that's when it gets really exciting, when you have, we don't have salespeople at Fuse. It's really just our employees creating those relationships for the most part, which is nice.
Hi. I have a question. I know something I struggle with, and I know a lot of people do, is marrying career with identity. And I'm curious, I'm sure that's profound as co-founders and co-owners of businesses, and how you find time and give yourself permission to take a step back from that, especially, in the creative world where, creativity is buzzing 24/7. How do you give yourself permission to take time off, step back from that, and kind of move forward?
I think a lot of photographers carry their camera with them all the time. I don't. It costs too much money, honestly. And so I think for me, that's a really big boundary. If I want to take it somewhere, I will, but it's not on me 24/7. And that just allows me to live my life and not live it through a lens of a camera at all times. And so that's been really important for me, taking time off, especially as a creative. Holy cow, when you're not thinking about your business, not looking at the email, not editing, not doing this, and you just step away, put the phone down, turn the notifications off, there's so much that comes to your mind. And so, yeah, I'm a photographer, but I love cooking, I love dancing, I love being a partner, I love being a daughter, right? There's so many parts of me. And so being able to not only serve my community, but be in my community, I think is really important for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
I have a question more for the branding component in the wedding. I think Fuse probably has teams for this, but as technology gets kind of crazier and clients come to you for more and more things, how do you focus on where the line is with your craft and the art and what you do versus what you would invest in? I need to know about animation and SEO and all these layers of
things in your brand that you need to, that you're accountable for now that you own your own company? Where do you draw the line in like how you grow? Am I making sense?
Well, for us, we bring on partners, so we don't try to do everything. I think back to, I got some pretty harsh advice in college that was really into a lot of different things, and I had it in my head that, you know, if there's if I'm doing a brochure or something, let's say, like, I have to take the photography myself and I have to write the copy myself. Like, there was this too much of a go-getter attitude that I need to do all of it, you know, or be proficient in all of it. And particularly in school, it was a time where web design was something that started to become an expectation of any junior level graphic designer, that if you come on, you have to be able to, like, concept and do production design and do website design. And that terrified me because I could see, wow, like, that's a pretty major range to have to really know how to build websites and stay current with coding and the coding language, and still be connected to my craft and feel like I'm still staying up to date in design. And so for me, it's been a conscious decision throughout my career to simplify and really focus on design and stay connected to that, and leverage really awesome creative partners who have those skills and are really great at what they do and great at their craft, so we can collaborate. So that's what Ruthless and Wellington has been. It's kind of our business model. It allows us to bring in different talent or creative partners to fit the need of the project or the client, and even ourselves as a client.
All right.
I have a question while I walk back.
Okay.
Asking for a friend. Let's say finance is your background, but you know you're creative. How do you let that person down?
I don't know.
Do you just nod your head and say, "Go away, Dave"? Or,
Yes.
My friend's name is David, so.
We've been talking a lot about self-worth and value. I'm just wondering, do you still deal with imposter syndrome?
Yes. All the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to. And I think that I'm an avid proponent of therapy, unpacking, you know, life events from the past, life events as they happen, and really thinking and kind of diving deep into where does that worthiness come from, or that lack of, or that imposter syndrome, where is that rooted in? Often it's childhood, FYI. Let's put it out there. Spoiler alert, right? So yeah, so I think for me, it's been an important journey to unpack that, to connect the dots of like, oh, when this person said this, it made me feel like this because it brought me back to this moment. And so, yeah, I mean, every day, especially as a woman of color, it's challenging to be in, especially such a white community, and to be like a new photographer in this field. There's a lot of photographers in Vermont, y'all. Like, there's just a lot. And so I think it's been beautiful to see a lot of the folks who I photographed come back. I think that's really important for me. But then also I think just celebrating myself. And so that's something that I've been working on recently, is like, yeah, the little moments, the big moments, like that helps me unpack my unworthiness.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. You have to celebrate
So
those
awesome.
moments and celebrate all the time.
Hello. I guess I'm the final question. But I have a question about creative outlets / hobbies, etc. Do you have any tips for like forcing yourself to actually take time for your hobbies or your creative outlets outside of work, or beyond just like time boxing on your calendar and hoping you stick to it?
Definitely. I think for me, getting outside and mountain biking and snowboarding and hiking. Those are some of my most inspired moments, and it's also what I love to do. And at Fuse, we do Winter Wednesdays, where everyone can come in at once. We ask you to get outside in the morning in the winter and do something outside for yourself. So, because we believe in it so much. So not only taking time for yourself, but doing something that inspires you that's different than a PowerPoint presentation or a Zoom call or something. So, yeah.
So people go into work and then leave?
No, they don't come into work until 1. So, and Wednesday's a work from home day, so they don't actually ever come in that day.
Awesome. All right. I'm so sorry, but we're all out of time here, and we had so many more great questions. So you can trap these people up here and ask your questions. Thank you all so much for coming to the final event of season 6 of the Female Founder Speaker Series. We've been going since 2016, which is crazy. Pretty great. And the reason we keep doing it, is because you all keep coming back, which is great. But the real reason is that people are starting businesses after coming to these events because of people like the 3 women here tonight. They're so inspired by you being so vulnerable and telling your stories. And I, on behalf of the whole audience, want to thank the 3 of you so much for giving us your time and being so vulnerable and helpful to folks who are starting their businesses, right? Yeah? All right. So thank you so much, Isora, Julie, Katie, and thank you, Hotel Vermont. Thank you so much. Have a good night.